When did survival mean betraying the people you cared about? I never thought survival would mean betraying the people I loved most. But that's exactly what happened. The night it all began, I was standing in the kitchen, staring at the flickering light bulb above the sink, when my brother whispered the words that shattered everything. They know, Eli. Mom and Dad know, and they're going to make you choose. I laughed at first, a nervous, brittle sound that cracked my throat. Choose what? His face, pale, trembling, eyes darting like a trapped animal, was all the answer I needed. It was about the money. Of course it was. Our family had barely hanging on since Dad lost his job at the factory. Mom took a second shift at the diner. I picked up odd work fixing fences and cleaning gutters. But it wasn't enough. The bills stacked higher each month, and the foreclosure letters started arriving. Then came Uncle Roy's solution. The kind of solution that doesn't sound real until you're already too deep to turn back. He called it a job, said it was just moving things. He promised no one would get hurt, but the first time I stepped into the warehouse and smelled the acrid mix of gasoline and sweat, I knew this wasn't work. It was crime. Organized, deliberate, dangerous crime. Still, the cash he pushed into my palm that night was more money than I'd seen in a year. And when I brought it home, Mom didn't ask where it came from. She just pressed her lips to my forehead and whispered, "Thank you." But gratitude curdled into expectation. Suddenly, my family wasn't surviving without me. They were surviving because of me. Every time I left the house, my little sister clutched my sleeve, asking if I was coming back. Every time I walked through the door with another envelope of dirty money, Dad looked away but didn't stop me. That's how betrayal starts. Quietly. With silence. With complicity. The night my brother confronted me, everything had reached a breaking point. Uncle Roy said the next job wasn't optional. He wanted me, and this time he wanted both of us. My brother, Caleb, 17 years old, still in school, still with a chance to escape all of this if I let him. They said if you don't bring me, they'll cut you off, and you know what that means. Caleb whispered, his voice shaking. Yeah, I knew. If I refused, Uncle Roy wouldn't just stop giving me jobs, he'd take back everything, our house, our safety, maybe even our lives. People who turned down Roy's opportunities didn't stay around long. Caleb's eyes bored into me. What are you going to do, Eli? The question twisted my insides because I already knew the answer, and it felt like the first real betrayal of my life. That night, lying awake in the room we shared, I listened to Caleb breathe, steady and oblivious in his sleep. My chest felt tight, like each inhale was lined with glass. I told myself I was protecting him, that bringing him with me would keep him safe, that I could shield him. But deep down, I knew the truth. To survive, I was going to lead him straight into the fire. And the fire was waiting. The next day, Roy's black truck rumbled up outside our house. His grin was wide, too many teeth showing. Ready, boys? I nodded before Caleb could say a word. That was the moment, the exact moment survival meant betraying the person I cared about most. I told myself I'd make it right somehow, that I'd find a way out before the flames swallowed us whole. But promises are easy in the daylight, harder in the dark alleys where bloodstains never wash out. I didn't know then just how far I'd fall, or who else I'd betray before it was over. All I knew was this. Once you step into Roy's world, there's no coming back clean. And I just dragged my brother with me. Roy's truck smelled like smoke and leather, with a faint trace of something chemical that stung the back of my throat. Caleb sat stiff beside me, in the cab, his fists pressed so tight against his knees that his knuckles looked white. He didn't say a word the whole ride. Neither did I. Roy didn't like silence filled. He liked it to stretch, heavy, until it felt like a test. He drove with one hand on the wheel, the other drumming against the door in time with the radio, some country song about heartbreak that felt cruelly out of place. "You boys are doing the right thing," Roy finally said, glancing at us in the rearview mirror. "Family's gotta eat. And loyalty's everything. Right, Eli?" I forced myself to nod. My throat was too dry to answer. Caleb didn't nod. His jaw clenched, but he stared out the window like maybe if he looked hard enough at the horizon, he could escape into it. Roy's smile faltered just for a second, and in that second I felt the danger coiling in the air. He was testing Caleb, testing me, and we both knew what happened when you failed his tests. The warehouse loomed like a carcass on the edge of town, corrugated walls rusting, weeds clawing up through cracked asphalt. Roy killed the engine, leaned across as and unlocked the glove compartment. Inside was a pistol. Black, heavy, cold. "Take it," Roy said, eyes on me. My stomach dropped. "What for?" Roy chuckled low. "Don't play dumb. Tonight's not just moving boxes. Tonight, you prove you can handle real work. Both of you." Caleb turned his head, finally speaking, voice trembling but sharp. "He never said anything about guns." Roy's hand snapped out, gripping the back of Caleb's neck, hard. His knuckles dug into my brother's skin until Caleb winced. "You think this is optional, boy? You think you get to negotiate with me?" "Stop," I said quickly, panic lacing my words. "He'll do it. We'll both do it." Roy's eyes slid to me, cold and amused. He let go of Caleb slow, like a predator bored with its prey. "That's more like it." I picked up the pistol. It was heavier than I expected. My fingers trembled around the grip. Roy noticed. "Don't worry. By the end of tonight, it'll feel like an extension of your hand." The words made bile rise in my throat. We followed him inside. The warehouse swallowed us whole. Dark, damp, reeking of oil. Shadows clung to the walls like cobwebs. In the center, lit by a single hanging bulb, were crates. Wooden. Stenciled with numbers and words I couldn't read. Roy pried one open with a crowbar. Inside, bricks of white powder wrapped in plastic. Drugs. More than I ever seen, more than I ever imagined. Roy tossed a brick into my hands like it was nothing. "You're moving this to the van out back, quick and quiet. Then we make a delivery. Easy money." Caleb stared at the brick, his voice barely audible. "This is insane." Roy's head snapped toward him. "What was that?" I cut in fast. "It meant it's heavy. That's all. We can handle it." Caleb shot me a look, one that burned. He knew what I was doing, covering, bending, betraying him by dragging him deeper instead of pulling him out. But what choice did I have? We worked in silence, carrying crate after crate to the van. Sweat soaked through my shirt, my heart hammered with each step. Caleb moved slower, clumsy with fear. Roy noticed. He always noticed. When the last crate was loaded, Roy clapped us both on the shoulders. "See? Easy. But now comes the fun part." "The delivery," I said flat. Roy grinned. "Smart boy." We drove again, longer this time, into the outskirts where streetlights flickered and houses sagged in on themselves. Finally, Roy stopped in front of a boarded-up liquor store. Two men were waiting outside, tattoos crawling up their necks, cigarettes glowing in the dark. One of them spit on the pavement as we got out. Roy nodded to me. "Grab a crate." I obeyed. Caleb didn't move. Roy's grin vanished. I said, "Both of you." "I don't want any part of this," Caleb whispered. Time froze. My pulse roared in my ears. Roy's hand slid toward the pistol at his belt. His eyes gleamed, daring Caleb to resist again. And in that moment, I understood. This wasn't just about drugs. This was a test of loyalty. And if Caleb failed it, Roy would end him right there. So I did the only thing I could. I shoved a crate into Caleb's arms. "Take it," I hissed under my breath. "Please, just do it." His eyes filled with betrayal. Pure betrayal. But he took it. And I knew I'd just crossed another line. We carried the crates inside. The men cut them open, inspected the product, nodded their approval. Cash changed hands. Stacks of it.
More than my family had seen in years. Roy cocketed most, tossed me an envelope thick enough to choke me with guilt. Good work. You boys are family now. But the way Caleb looked at me as we walked back to the truck, I knew something had broken between us. Something that could never be fixed. The ride home was suffocating. Roy hummed along to the radio, flicking ash out the window as if he hadn't just chained us to him with invisible iron. Every mile felt heavier. Caleb didn't speak, didn't look at me. His silence was worse than yelling would have been. When Roy finally dropped us off in front of the house, he leaned across me and locked eyes with Caleb. You did good, kid. But don't forget, this is family now. You try to walk away and, well, let's just say family doesn't forgive betrayal. He winked, drove off, and left us standing in the weak glow of the porch light. Caleb walked inside without a word. I followed, the envelope of cash burning in my pocket. Mom was waiting at the kitchen table, her apron still on from the diner. Her eyes went to the envelope immediately. Did he come through? I placed it on the table. She opened it with trembling fingers, her eyes widening at the stack of bills. Relief washed over her face, raw and desperate. Oh, thank God. This will buy us time. Caleb flinched, his hands curling into fists. You knew what he was making Eli do, and you let it happen. Mom's eyes snapped at him, sharp. Don't you raise your voice at me. Do you think the bank cares where the money comes from? Do you think the electric company does? This house, your bed, your food, all of it exists because your brother is willing to do what it takes. Her words sliced through me, leaving both pride and shame bleeding in their wake. Caleb's face twisted. It's wrong. It's all wrong. Wrong? Her laugh was bitter. Try watching your children starve. Try burying them because you can't afford medicine. That's wrong. Caleb stormed off, slamming our bedroom door so hard the frame rattled. Mom sank into her chair, clutching the money like it was oxygen. Her eyes softened when she looked at me. You're saving us, Eli. Don't let him make you feel otherwise. Her words should have comforted me, but all I could hear was Roy's voice in my head. Family doesn't forgive betrayal. When I finally went to bed, Caleb was lying on his side, facing the wall. His shoulders stiff, his breaths uneven. I wanted to say something, anything, but the silence between us had grown into a canyon. I lay awake for hours, staring at the ceiling, the weight of my choices pressing down like a stone slab. The next morning, Roy called. I knew it was him before I even picked up, that gravelly voice too cheerful to be real. Got another run tonight, Eli. And listen, your brother, he's coming. Don't want him getting any ideas about backing out. You understand? I understand. Roy chuckled. That's my boy. When the line went dead, Caleb finally looked at me. His eyes were dark, wet with something unspoken. You're not even going to fight it, are you, Caleb? No. He shook his head. You've already chosen. And he was right. That night, Roy didn't take us to the warehouse. He drove deeper into the woods, headlights cutting through darkness until we reached a clearing I'd never seen before. A bonfire roared in the middle, flames licking the night sky. Men circled it, shadows dancing across their faces, cigarettes glowing like fireflies. Roy parked, killed the engine, and grinned at us. Time for initiation. My blood cold. What kind of initiation? Caleb asked, his voice tight.
Roy didn't answer. He opened his door and motioned for us to follow. We did. The men around the fire parted, letting us through. On the ground lay a man, bound, beaten. His face swollen, blood dried on his lip. His eyes found mine, pleading, desperate. This rat thought he could skim from us, Roy said loudly, addressing the circle, thought he could take what wasn't his. And you know what we do with rats. The crowd murmured agreement. Roy pressed the pistol into my hand. Do it. My heart stopped. What? Prove your loyalty, Roy said, his smile wide and cruel, or you and your brother take his place. The fire crackled. The bound man whimpered. Caleb stood frozen beside me, his breath coming fast. "Eli," he whispered, his voice breaking. "Don't." But Roy's eyes burned into me, daring me to disobey. The pistol felt like ice in my hands, and I knew whatever I chose in that moment would damn me forever. The world narrowed to the weight of the pistol in my hand. The fire roared, men's faces flickering in and out of shadow, all eyes locked on me. My pulse thundered in my ears, drowning out everything except Caleb's whisper. "Don't, Eli. Please." The bound man's eyes met mine, swollen but still human, still alive. He shook his head minutely like he'd rather take the bullet than have me carry it. Roy leaned close, his breath reeking of whiskey and smoke. "This is it, boy. 1 second of courage and you're family forever. Or 1 second of weakness and you're dead before dawn. Choose." His words slithered into me, poison disguised as logic. I wanted to drop the gun, to scream, to grab Caleb and run, but the circle of men was unbroken. Their hands rested casually on knives, on bats, on pistols of their own. There was no escape. "Do it," Roy growled low enough that only I could hear. "Or I'll let your brother prove he's got more guts than you." I froze. My throat tightened, bile rising. Roy would kill Caleb without hesitation, I knew it. And that was when it hit me. Survival wasn't just mine to decide. It was Caleb's too. If I refused, I wouldn't just be damning myself, I'd be damning him. The thought broke something inside me. My finger trembled against the trigger. The man on the ground whimpered again, a sound that carved itself into my bones. Then I pulled. The shot split the night like lightning. The man jerked once, then went still. For a second, silence fell over the clearing. Then the circle erupted in cheers, whoops, laughter. Hands clapped my back, rough and approving. Someone shoved a bottle of whiskey into my hand. But all I could hear was Caleb's scream. "Eli, what did you do?" He lunged at me, fists flying, but Roy caught him easily, dragging him back. "Calm your brother down," Roy said, laughing like it was all a joke. "He'll understand soon enough." But Caleb wasn't calming down. He was thrashing, spitting, his voice hoarse from shouting my name. "You're a murderer. You killed him. You're no better than them." Each word was a blade. I staggered back, whiskey sloshing over my hand, staring at the man I'd just killed. Blood pooled beneath his head, black in the firelight. My stomach churned. I bent over and vomited, bile burning my throat. Roy just laughed harder. "That's how it starts. First one's always the hardest." I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. The cheering men blurred into shadows, their voices merging into a roar. Caleb's cries cut through them all, jagged and raw. When Roy finally let him go, Caleb stumbled toward me. His face was twisted with grief and fury. "I hate you," he whispered. His voice was ragged but steady. "You hear me, Eli? I hate you." Then he turned and walked back toward the truck. Alone. The bonfire crackled behind me. The dead man's face stared blankly at the stars. Roy's hand clapped my shoulder. Again.
"You did what had to be done," he said. "That's survival." I wanted to shove him off. I wanted to scream, but my body moved on autopilot, following Caleb's shadow back to the truck. The ride home was silent, except for Caleb's ragged breathing beside me. He didn't look at me once. When we pulled into the driveway, Roy leaned across us again. His eyes glinted in the dim light. "Welcome to the family, Eli. You're one of us now." Then he drove off, leaving us in the dark. Caleb stepped out of the truck, slammed the door, and stormed inside. I sat there for a long time, the gunshot echoing in my skull, the weight of betrayal crushing me. When I finally walked into the house, I found Caleb in our room. He was stuffing clothes into a backpack. "Where are you going?" I asked, my voice raw. "Away from you," he spat. "I can't even look at you anymore." "Caleb." "No." He turned, eyes blazing. "You chose him over me. You chose survival over your own brother." His words were final, sharp as a coffin nail. I reached for him, but he shoved past me, backpack slung over his shoulder. And just like that, he was gone. I stood there in the empty room, my hand shaking, the memory of the gunshot ringing in my ears. And for the first time, I wondered if Roy had been right all along. Maybe survival did mean betrayal. But if that was true, what kind of person had I just become? The house felt hollow after Caleb left. His side of the room looked like a ghost, bed stripped, closet door left ajar with nothing hanging inside. Every time I glanced over, I felt that absence like a missing limb. Mom didn't ask questions when she realized he was gone. She saw my face, saw the envelope of money I tossed on the table, and said only, "We'll manage." But Dad looked at me with something worse than anger. Disappointment. Like he knew what had happened in those woods. Maybe he'd been through his own version of Roy's fire once. Maybe he recognized the haunted look in my eyes. "You crossed a line you can't uncross, son," he muttered before walking out the back door. I wanted to scream at him. I did it for us, for you, for this house. But the words died in my throat, because maybe, deep down, I knew I hadn't done it for them at all. I'd done it because I was too much of a coward to say no. 2 days later, Roy showed up again. He didn't knock. He never did. He just walked into the kitchen like he owned it, plopped himself down at our table and poured himself a glass of Dad's whiskey. "Where's the kid brother?" he asked casually, though his eyes were sharp. "He's gone," I said flatly. Roy grinned. "Good. Weak ones never last." The casual cruelty in his tone made my stomach turn. Caleb wasn't weak. He was the only one strong enough to walk away. He slid an envelope across the table, thicker than before. I didn't touch it. "What's this?" I asked. "Your cut and a thank you gift. You're in now, Eli, fully. That means bigger jobs, bigger paydays, no more grunt work." "I never asked to be in." Roy chuckled. "You think you get a choice? You pulled that trigger, boy. There's no going back. Blood binds you tighter than any contract." His words hit me like chains snapping shut. He was right. Whether I wanted it or not, I was his. That night, I found a note on my bed, Caleb's handwriting jagged and rushed. "Eli, if you still care about me at all, don't go back with him. Run, please." I read it over and over, the ink smudged from where his hand must have been shaking. My chest ached. I wanted to follow him, to prove I wasn't lost completely. But the next night, Roy called again. He said, "We've got a delivery across state lines. High stakes, high reward. And I need you, Eli. Don't make me come looking." I thought about Caleb's note, about leaving, about running. But I thought about Mom too, how she clutched the money like it was the only thing keeping her heart beating. And so, once again, I said yes. The delivery was nothing like the warehouse run. This time, Roy brought me into the belly of the operation. Safe houses, armed guards, men who looked at me like I was fresh meat waiting to spoil. "Stay close," Roy muttered as we crossed a yard lit by floodlights. "Smile too wide and they'll gut you. Look too scared and they'll gut you faster." I tried to keep my expression neutral, but my hands wouldn't stop trembling. Inside, crates lined the walls. Not drugs this time. Weapons, rifles, handguns, grenades still sealed in boxes stamped with military codes. "What the hell is this?" I whispered. Roy's grin widened. "Welcome to the big leagues." We spent hours unloading, repacking, transporting. My muscles burned, but my fear kept me moving. At one point, a man with a scar splitting his cheek leaned in close and whispered, "First chance you get, boy, run. This life eats everyone." His words burrowed deep. A warning or a curse. I couldn't tell. By dawn, it was done. Roy handed me another envelope, even thicker than before. "You're proving yourself," he said. "Keep this up and you'll be untouchable." Untouchable. I walked home with the money heavy in my pocket, but Caleb's words heavier in my chest. "Run, please." That night, I couldn't sleep. Every creak of the house sounded like boots on the porch. Every shadow stretched into Roy's grin. I clutched Caleb's note until the paper crumpled. For the first time, I wondered if betraying him wasn't the worst of it. Maybe the real betrayal was against myself. Because each time I said yes, each time I stayed, I wasn't surviving anymore. I was dying a little slower. And deep down, I knew soon I'd have to choose again. And next time, the choice might destroy me completely. The days bled together after that. Nights spent running crates, mornings spent lying to my parents about where I'd been. The money piled up in envelopes under Mom's mattress, but it never felt like enough. Not for the house, not for redemption. Every time I saw that stack grow, I thought of Caleb. I imagined him somewhere far away, free of all this, while I sank deeper into Roy's quicksand. I envied him, hated him a little too, for leaving me to carry the weight alone. One night, Roy showed up with something new in his eyes, excitement mixed with malice. He slapped a folder down on the hood of his truck. "Got a big one tonight," he said, lighting a cigarette. "Something that'll prove once and for all that you're not just another errand boy." I flipped open the folder. Inside was a photo. A man, maybe mid-40s, clean-cut, business suit. "Who's this?" I asked, though I already knew. Roy exhaled smoke into the cold night air. An accountant. Thought he could talk to the wrong people. Thought he could move money without cutting us in. My stomach nodded. "And what do you want me to do?" Roy's grin widened, teeth glowing in the cigarette's ember. "What do you think?" My throat closed. I shook myself before I could stop myself. "No, I can't. Not again." Roy's smile vanished. His eyes hardened into steel. "Listen to me, Eli. You're already in. You killed for me once, you'll do it again, unless you want your mama to find out exactly what keeps her lights on." His words landed like a blade against my spine. Mom's face flashed in my mind, her weary eyes, her shaking hands clutching every dollar. If Roy told her, if he told anyone, it wouldn't just ruin me. It would drag all of us down. My voice cracked. "I'll do it." Roy smirked, satisfied. "That's my boy." The address was a suburb 2 towns over, nice houses, trimmed lawns, the kind of place Caleb would have deserved to grow up in if life had been different. The man's house was quiet, porch light buzzing faintly. Roy handed me the pistol, same one as before. "Go on," he said, quick and clean. I stood there frozen on the walkway, the weight of the gun pulling me down. Every step toward that door felt like stepping off a cliff.
Then movement. Across the street, a figure in a hoodie, watching. My heart lurched. I knew that stance, that stillness. Caleb. He was here. The front door opened before I could think. The man from the photo stepped out, trash bag in hand, humming to himself. He looked normal, ordinary, human. I raised the gun. My hand shook. "Do it," Roy hissed from the truck. "Eli," Caleb's voice cut through the night, sharp, desperate. "Don't you dare." The man looked up, startled. His eyes flicked from me to Caleb to the truck. Confusion twisted into fear. I froze. 2 voices battled inside me, Roy's command and Caleb's plea. My finger trembled on the trigger. The man dropped the trash bag, stumbling backward. "Now," Roy barked. I just couldn't. I lowered the gun. "No," I whispered. Roy's roar was louder than the cicadas in the trees. "What did you just say to me?" I said no. My voice shook, but the word came out anyway. The world slowed. Roy stormed out of the truck, fury radiating from him. The men in the back seat followed, weapons drawn.
Caleb darted across the street, putting himself between me and them. "You'll have to go through me first." The night cracked with tension, the air thick as cement. Roy sneered, his pistol aimed directly at Caleb's chest. Fine by me. And in that instant, I knew survival meant betraying someone again. Either I betrayed Roy, the man who owned me now, or I betrayed my brother a second time. And this time, betrayal meant watching him die. The barrel of Roy's gun gleamed under the buzzing porch light, steady as a snake ready to strike. Caleb stood firm, chest heaving, his eyes locked on mine. "Eli," he said, his voice breaking but steady, "don't let him own you. Not again." My hand tightened around the pistol Roy had shoved at me. My palms were slick, my knees weak. My brain screamed at me to run, to hide, to do anything but stand here with death inches away. Roy took a step closer, his voice low and venomous. "Move out of the way, boy. You had your chance. Now you're just in my way." Caleb didn't budge. And in that second, something snapped in me. A memory, sharp as glass. Caleb as a kid, crying after he fell off his bike, me kneeling beside him, promising I'd always protect him. That promise had turned to ash the night of the bonfire. But maybe, just maybe, I could keep it now. I lifted the pistol, not at Caleb, not at the man in the suit, at Roy. The circle of men froze. Even Roy blinked in disbelief. "You better lower that gun, Eli. You don't know what you're doing." But I did. For the first time in weeks, maybe months, I knew. "I'm done," I said, my voice shaking. "You don't own me. You don't own us." Roy's smile spread slow and cruel. "So this is how it is? You think you can turn on me after what you did for me?" "You made me," I spat. My hand steadied. "But I won't let you take him, too." The man in the suit bolted, disappearing into the dark. Tires screeched in the distance. Neighbors, maybe. Or someone calling the cops. The world felt like it was about to collapse. Roy cocked his head, eyes gleaming. "Then you better be ready to finish what you started." And he lunged. The gunshot tore the night apart. I didn't even feel myself pull the trigger, just the recoil, violent and final, rattling up my arm. Roy stumbled, eyes wide with shock, before collapsing into the dirt. Silence. Then chaos. His men shouted, drew their weapons, but Caleb was already grabbing my arm. "Run!" he screamed. We bolted into the trees, branches slashing at our faces, the shouts of Roy's men echoing behind us. My lungs burned, my legs screamed, but adrenaline dragged me forward. Caleb never let go of my arm, pulling me when I stumbled, urging me faster. We didn't stop until the woods swallowed us whole, until the lights and the shouting were far behind. We collapsed against a fallen log, gasping for air, our bodies shaking. "You..." Caleb panted. "You shot him." "I had to," I whispered. My hands shook violently. "It was him or you, and I wasn't going to lose you again." Caleb stared at me, tears glistening in his eyes. For the first time since that night by the fire, he reached for me, not with anger, not with betrayal, but with the grip of a brother who had almost been lost. But the relief was short-lived. Sirens wailed in the distance, faint but growing. Police. Maybe. Or maybe Roy's men regrouping. "We can't go home," Caleb said firmly. "I know." Mom's face flashed in my mind, what she'd say when she found out, what danger she'd be in if we stayed. "We need to disappear," Caleb said firmly. "Both of us, tonight." I nodded, even as fear hollowed me out, because I knew what that meant. We weren't just running from Roy's men. We were running from ourselves, from everything we'd done. The sirens grew louder, the trees felt smaller, and deep down, I knew this was only the beginning, because survival hadn't just cost me my brother's trust. Now, it had cost me my soul, and there was no telling what else it would take. We didn't go home. We didn't even look back toward town. We ran until our legs buckled, until the sirens were no longer chasing us but echoing faintly behind the trees. When we finally stopped, we collapsed near a drainage ditch, mud clinging to our shoes, sweat cooling on our skin. Caleb was the first to speak, his voice ragged. "Do you realize what you've done?" I pressed my hands into my face. "I saved you." "No," he snapped. "You killed him. You killed Roy. Do you have any idea what that means?" Of course I did. Roy wasn't just one man. He was a network, a chain, a storm, and I had just torn out the eye of the hurricane. His men wouldn't forgive. They wouldn't forget. "We need to get out," Caleb said firmly. "Far out, different state. Maybe more. They'll come for us." "Mom." Caleb stopped. His face hardened. "If we go back, we're dead. And if she knows anything, they'll use her against us." The words twisted in me. The idea of leaving her, of walking away from the only home we'd ever known. But maybe he was right. Maybe survival meant cutting ties so completely it hurt worse than death. We moved before sunrise, slipping through back roads, cutting across fields. Caleb knew a guy from school who owed him a favor. By noon, we had a beat-up car with plates that didn't match the registration. It was freedom in rust and rattles. We drove with no plan, just distance. The highway stretched like an endless wound beneath us. I kept checking the mirrors, convinced every set of headlights was Roy's men closing in. Hours passed, towns blurred. Caleb sat stiff, his jaw clenched, eyes locked ahead. He hadn't looked at me once since we left. Finally, at a gas station off the interstate, he broke the silence. "You know this doesn't fix anything, right? You can't erase what you did back there, or what you did before." "I know." My voice cracked. He turned, finally meeting my eyes. "Then how do I feel like you'll betray me again the second it gets hard?" The words cut deeper than the recoil of the gun ever had. I wanted to swear it wasn't true. I wanted to promise I'd never choose survival over him again. But I remembered the bonfire, the man on the ground, the way I'd shoved that crate into his arms to save my own skin.
And the truth was, I didn't trust myself either. We stayed off main roads, sleeping in the car, taking turns driving. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Roy's face as he fell. Sometimes I saw the other man too, the one at the bonfire, eyes wide, pleading, my finger on the trigger, always my finger. By the third night, exhaustion had carved me hollow. Caleb pulled the car into a truck stop, killed the engine, and sat there with his hands on the wheel. "We can't keep running like this," he muttered. "What choice do we have?" His silence was worse than an answer. He leaned back, staring at the cracked roof liner. "You ever think maybe survival isn't worth it? Not like this?" The thought chilled me. He wasn't just tired, he was breaking, and I didn't know how to hold him together anymore. Not after everything I'd done to him. "We'll find a way," I said, more to convince myself than him. But even as the words left my mouth, headlights swept across the lot. A black SUV pulled in, slow, deliberate. My blood froze. Caleb saw it too, his hand closed over mine on the door handle. "It's them," he whispered. The SUV idled for a moment, then parked 2 rows over. The engine cut, but no one got out. Every muscle in my body screamed to run. But where? How? We sat in silence, hearts pounding, trapped in a metal box with nowhere to go. And I realized then, the past wasn't chasing us, it had already caught up. The parking lot was quiet, too quiet. A handful of truckers milled near the convenience store, smoke drifting from their cigarettes, unaware that death was sitting just 2 rows over. The SUV's windows were tinted black, swallowing any shape inside. Caleb's grip on my wrist tightened until it hurt. "We can't stay here," he whispered.
If we move, they'll see us, I whispered back. They already see us. The words dropped like stones in my stomach. He was right. We weren't invisible. Not anymore. The SUV door creaked open. One figure stepped out. A man in a dark jacket, broad-shouldered, moving slow, like he had all the time in the world. He didn't look our way, but I felt it, his awareness sharp as a blade. "Get down," Caleb hissed. We both slid low in the seats, barely breathing. My heart pounded so hard I thought it would rattle the glass. The man walked into the store. The door chime jingled. Normal, casual, like he was just buying a coffee. But the SUV's engine stayed off. Someone else was in there, waiting. Caleb's voice shook. "We have to leave, now." I looked at the key dangling from the ignition, my hand twitching. If I started the car, the noise would draw their eyes. If I didn't, we'd sit here until they surrounded us. A choice, always a choice. "I'll drive," I said. "No," Caleb snapped. "You freeze when it matters. Give me the keys." The word stung, but he wasn't wrong. I'd frozen before, and when I hadn't, I'd chosen wrong. My fingers hovered over the keys, trembling. Trust him or not? Survival or control? I placed the keys in his palm. Caleb's jaw clenched as he slid them into the ignition. The engine roared to life. The SUV's headlights flared instantly. "Go!" I shouted. Tires screeched, our car jolted forward, gravel spitting from under the wheels. The SUV peeled out behind us, lights blinding, engines snarling like a predator. The highway blurred as Caleb floored it, weaving between semis, the old car shuddering at every push. The SUV gained fast, its engine stronger, newer. "They're going to ram us," Caleb yelled. I twisted in my seat. The SUV loomed closer, its grille inches from our bumper. My mind raced. Running wouldn't be enough. We needed to fight back. The pistol. It was still under my seat. My fingers scrabbled until I felt the cold metal. I yanked it free, window down, air whipping into my face. I leaned out, aiming at the SUV's windshield. My arms shook violently. I'd never fired from a moving car. My breath came ragged.
"Eli," Caleb shouted, "don't miss." I squeezed the trigger. The shot cracked through the night. Glass spiderwebbed across the SUV's windshield. It swerved but didn't stop. Again, I fired again. Sparks flew as a bullet clipped their hood. Still, they pressed closer. "Eli," Caleb screamed. I aimed lower this time at the front tire. My fingers squeezed. The SUV jerked violently, sparks exploding as the tire shredded. It fishtailed, skidding sideways across the asphalt before slamming into the guardrail with a screech of tearing metal. Caleb didn't slow down. He kept driving, eyes locked ahead, knuckles white on the wheel. My hands shook so badly I nearly dropped the gun. I yanked the window closed, slumping into my seat. We lost him," I whispered. Caleb's jaw was tight. For now. The car rattled on endless miles of blacktop, the engine whining like it was begging to rest. Caleb's face was a mask. Stone, unflinching, eyes locked on the horizon. The silence between us felt louder than the gunshot still ringing in my ears. Finally, he pulled into a deserted rest stop, gravel crunching under the tires. The fluorescent lights above the bathroom stalls buzzed faintly, casting everything in a sickly glow. He killed the engine but didn't move, just gripped the wheel like if he let go the world would spin out of control. I swallowed hard. "Caleb, I meant what I said back there. I'm sorry." His laugh was hollow, bitter. "Sorry? You think that fixes it? Sorry doesn't erase the man you shot at the fire, doesn't erase Roy bleeding out in the dirt, doesn't erase the fact that you dragged me into this. I was trying to save us. You were trying to save yourself." His voice cracked, sharp enough to cut me. The words lodged deep, because they were true. Caleb pushed the door open, stepping into the night air, his hands shaking. I followed him out, gravel shifting under my boots. He paced, running a hand through his hair. "You even realize what's happening now? Roy's men, they're not gonna stop. You killed him, Eli. Do you know what that means?" I whispered. "They'll come for us." "No," he snapped. "They'll come for me, because I'm your weakness, and they'll use me to break you." My chest tightened.
The image came too easily. Caleb bound like the man at the firebahn, his eyes pleading while I stood frozen, gun in hand. My stomach churned. Then we keep running. We stay ahead of them. We can't run forever. His voice echoed off the concrete walls. There's only two ways this ends. Either they kill us, or we kill them first. The words hung heavy between us. A declaration. A curse. I shook my head, horror filling me. I'm not. You already are, he said coldly. Don't you get it? The second you pulled that trigger at the fire, you became them. His gaze locked on mine, and for the first time I saw no trace of my little brother, no forgiveness, no hope, just someone hardened by betrayal and fear. Before I could respond, headlights cut across the lot. A pickup truck pulled in, rust on its doors, muffler growling low. 2 men stepped out. I froze. My hand went instinctively to the pistol tucked into my waistband. Caleb grabbed my wrist. Don't. Not yet. The men walked slow, deliberate. Not truckers, not travelers. Their eyes scanned the lot until they landed on us. One of them smirked. Evening, boys. Caleb shifted subtly, placing himself half a step in front of me. We don't want trouble. Funny thing, the taller man drawled, pulling something shiny from his jacket pocket. A knife. Long, serrated. Looks like trouble's all you've got. The other man chuckled darkly, his hand brushing the outline of a gun at his hip. It was clear. Roy's men had found us. My breath caught, blood rushing in my ears. The night felt electric, the rest stopped buzzing like a live wire. And I realized the choice Caleb had thrown in my face wasn't theoretical anymore. Kill them first, or die here tonight. The taller man twirled the knife lazily, the blade catching the sickly fluorescent light. Roy always said you had potential, Eli, he said, voice smooth as oil. But potential doesn't mean much when you turn the gun on family. My stomach lurched. They knew. Of course they knew. The shorter man chuckled, hand resting on the pistol tucked at his waistband. Ain't bossing around to protect you no more, but we'll do 'em proud tonight. Caleb edged closer to me, his voice low, steady. Eli, listen to me. You can't freeze, not this time. My fingers twitched toward the pistol under my jacket. My mind screamed, I can't. I won't. But Caleb's hand brushed mine, grounding me. Survive, whatever it takes. The taller man lunged first, knife flashing. Instinct overrode thought. I stumbled back, fumbling for my gun. Caleb intercepted him, shoving hard, the blade slashing the air inches from his chest. The second man's pistol cleared his waistband, black metal glinking. Without thinking, I raised mine. The sound of the gunshot split the night. He dropped instantly, crumpling onto the gravel with a sickening thud. My ears rang, my hands shook violently. I'd done it again. The taller man roared, charging at me with the knife. Caleb grabbed his arm, the two of them struggling, the bleed flashing dangerously close to his throat. Eli! Caleb screamed. I aimed, my vision tunneling, fear locking me in place. My brother's body twisted with the man's, too close, too fast. I couldn't get a clean shot. Not again, I thought. Not him. With a guttural yell, Caleb drove his knee up into the man's stomach. The knife clattered to the ground. In that split second, I fired. The man staggered, eyes wide in shock, before collapsing across the gravel beside his partner. Silence swallowed the lot. The buzzing light overhead was the only sound. Caleb stood bent over, breathing hard, sweat dripping from his forehead. His chest heaved as he stared at the bodies. You killed them both, whispered. No, I choked out, voice trembling. We did. We had no choice. But the truth scraped at my insides. I had pulled the trigger. Twice. Their blood was mine. Again. Caleb sank onto the curb, burying his face in his hands. I dropped beside him, the gun slipping from my grip. We can't stay here, he muttered through his fingers.
They'll know. More will come. I know. My throat was raw, my stomach twisting, but where do we even go? He lifted his head, eyes burning. Somewhere they don't own us. Somewhere far enough we can disappear. His gaze flicked to the gun lying between us. For a second, I thought he'd shove it back into my hand, but instead he kicked it under the car, out of reach. No more guns tonight, he said firmly. We loaded into the car, hands shaking, hearts pounding, gravel crunching under the tires as we pulled out of the lot. The bodies faded into the darkness behind us, but their weight didn't. Hours passed on empty roads. Neither of us spoke. Every time headlights appeared in the rearview mirror, my chest clenched, waiting for another chase. Finally, as dawn crept across the horizon, Caleb spoke. His voice was hoarse, raw. You realize we crossed a line tonight, right? This isn't survival anymore. This is war. I gripped the wheel tighter, my knuckles pale. And though I didn't want to admit it, I knew he was right. Roy's men wouldn't stop, not after this. And the next time they found us, it wouldn't be just 2 men in a parking lot. It would be all of them. Dawn painted the sky in pale bruises of purple and gray as we sped down the highway. The car rattled like it might fall apart at any moment, but it kept moving, and that was enough. Caleb sat stiff beside me, arms crossed tight, eyes red-rimmed but unblinking. Neither of us had slept. Neither of us dared. Every so often I glanced at him, hoping to catch some flicker of the brother I used to know, the kid who used to race me to the creek, who'd laugh so hard he'd choke on his own breath. But all I saw was a soldier. Hard, unyielding, carved sharp by everything we'd done. Around noon, we pulled into a diner off the interstate. Chrome siding, neon sign buzzing, the kind of place where people came and went without remembering faces. Perfect. Inside, it smelled of coffee and grease. We slid into a booth at the back. Caleb kept his back to the wall, eyes flicking constantly to the door. A waitress poured us coffee. I wrapped my hands around the mug, grateful for something warm. My fingers still shook. We need money, Caleb said once she left. His voice was quiet but urgent. Cash that isn't stained by them, something clean. I let out a humorless laugh. And where exactly are we supposed to find that? His jaw clenched. We'll figure it out, but we can't keep running forever. They'll track us. We need to disappear. New names, new lives. His words should have filled me with hope. Instead, all I felt was the weight of what we'd done. The bodies in the gravel, Roy bleeding in the dirt, the man at the bonfire whose eyes would never leave me. Do you think we deserve that? I whispered. Caleb's gaze snapped to mine. Deserve what? A new life. Freedom. I stared into my coffee, unable to look at him. His voice dropped low and sharp. You didn't just betray them, Eli. You betrayed me. The words hit harder than any fist. I know, I whispered. He leaned across the table, his eyes burning into me. So tell me, what happens when it comes down to another choice, when it's them or me again? Are you going to shove me into the fire one more time? My throat tightened. I wanted to swear I'd never do it again, that I'd burn myself alive before letting him get touched, but the memories rose like smoke. The crate I'd shoved into his arms, the way I'd pulled the trigger while he begged me not to. My silence was its own confession. Caleb sat back, shaking his head, disgust etched deep into his face. The bell above the diner door jingled. 2 men walked in. Suits. Clean. Sharp. Too sharp. My blood went cold. Caleb noticed too. His hand slid under the table, reaching for the knife he'd kept hidden at his ankle. The men took a booth near the door, ordered coffee, but their eyes scanned the room, measured, searching. They found us, Caleb murmured. My pulse spiked. We need to get out. Not yet. If we move too fast, we're done. We sat in silence, sipping coffee we didn't taste, hearts pounding in sync with the ticking clock above the counter. The men didn't look directly at us, but their presence filled the diner like a storm cloud, waiting, watching. Caleb leaned in, his whisper razor-sharp. When it breaks, you pick a side. No freezing, no hesitation. You hear me? I nodded, though terror gripped me. The waitress returned, smiling, oblivious. You boys need anything else? Before we could answer, one of the suited men stood, his hand slipped inside his jacket. Time fractured. The world shrunk to heartbeats and breath. And I knew another choice was about to be forced on me.